Today I'm going to be talking about how fast food and processed foods damage your heart. I chose this subject because it's something that impacts almost everyone because of how convenient and cheap processed and fast foods are, and some people underestimate just how dangerous they can be. I also wanted to provide realistic, healthier alternatives that people can turn to. The research question that I'm going to be discussing is what are the cardiovascular risks associated with processed and fast foods, and what healthier alternatives can reduce these risks? Ultra processed foods are everywhere and very cheap, which is why they're so popular. Consuming these foods that are high in fat, salt, and sugar is the number one way to increase your risk of heart disease. High sodium diets increase blood pressure, which negatively affects the cardiovascular system. Having high blood pressure for a long period of time can narrow your blood vessels, putting you at great risk for heart failure, stroke, and heart attack. To put into perspective just how unhealthy these foods are, here are some popular fast foods and processed foods and their sodium levels. The American Heart Association recommends that adults consume less than 1,500 milligrams of sodium per day. The University of Minnesota School of Public Health researchers conducted a study to determine the health risks of eating fast foods and found that consuming fast food as little as once a week increases the risk of dying from coronary heart disease by 20%. The risk goes up to 50% if you consume fast food 2 to 3 times a week, and for those who consume fast food 4 or more times a week, the risk percentage rises to 80%. An article by Michaela Conley states that 57% of the calories that American adults consume comes from ultra-processed foods, and that percentage in American children is even higher at 67%. This statistic highlights how common it is for people to be getting their meals mainly from fast food restaurants or other processed foods. Growing up on this unhealthy diet directly impacts children's physical development, impairing their growth, immune function, brain development, and significantly increasing their risk of heart disease. A study done by a team of researchers in a large-scale ongoing nutritional study in France aimed to investigate the association between consumption of ultra-processed foods and the risk of developing cardiovascular diseases. The researchers analyzed dietary records from over 100,000 participants and found that the more ultra-processed foods they ate, the higher their risk was of heart disease and stroke. For every 10% increase in processed foods in their diet, their heart disease risk rose by 12%. Even when they accounted for things like sugar, fat, and salt, the risk stayed high, showing that it's not just the bad ingredients, it's the heavy processing itself that hurts the heart health. In a study done by 3 researchers at the Royal Veterinary College in the United Kingdom, pregnant rats were fed a junk food diet high in fat, sugar, and salt, and their babies' eating habits and weights were then tracked. The offspring of the junk food-fed mothers developed a strong preference for unhealthy foods and were heavier with higher BMIs compared to rats who weren't exposed to junk food. This suggests that what a mother eats during pregnancy and breastfeeding can shape her child's long-term risk of obesity and heart disease. The 3 best food options for those who want to decrease their risk of developing heart disease and improve their cardiovascular health, starting at number 1, is fatty fish such as tuna, salmon, and sardines. These contain a high amount of omega-3 fatty acids, which reduce high blood pressure and high triglycerides, resulting in a lower risk of heart disease. Number 2 is leafy greens such as spinach, collard greens, and kale, which are high in vitamins, antioxidants, and minerals, especially vitamin K, which is known for protecting arteries and preventing irregular blood clotting. They are also high in dietary nitrates, which are recognized for their ability to reduce blood pressure and arterial stiffness. Having healthier arteries reduces the risk of heart disease. Number 3 is whole grains such as brown rice, oatmeal, and barley, which are rich in fiber and reduces LDL cholesterol. Too much LDL in the arteries can turn into plaque, which can increase the risk of heart attacks. Fast food and processed snacks may seem harmless, but over time they raise your risk of heart disease, stroke, and high blood pressure. especially when you eat them often from a young age. The good news is that this is preventable. By choosing real whole foods like fish, leafy greens, and whole grains, you're actively protecting your heart. So the next time you're choosing your next meal or snack, think about your well being and your heart.